March 13th, 1899. Volume 2. All creation speaks of the love of God for man, and teaches him how he must love him. This morning, beloved Jesus did not make himself seen in the usual way, all affability and sweetness, but severe. I felt my mind in a sea of confusion, and my soul so afflicted and annihilated, especially because of the chastisements I saw in these past days. In seeing him with that appearance, I did not dare to tell him anything. We looked at each other, but in silence. Oh God, what pain! Then in one instant I also saw the confessor, and Jesus, sending forth a ray of intellectual light, spoke these words: Charity. Charity is nothing but an outpouring of the divine being. And this outpouring I have diffused over the whole creation, in such a way that all creation speaks of the love I have for man, and all creation teaches him how he must love me, from the largest being to the most tiny little flower in the field. See, it says to man, with my sweet fragrance and by always facing the sky, I try to send an homage to my Creator. You too, let all your actions be fragrant, holy, pure. Do not offend my Creator with the bad odor of your actions. Oh, please, O man, the little flower repeats to us, don't be so senseless as to keep your eyes fixed on the earth, but rather raise them up to heaven. See, up there is your destiny, your fatherland. Up there is my Creator and yours who awaits you. The water that flows continuously before our eyes also says to us, See, I have come out of darkness, and I must flow and run so much until I go and bury myself in the place from which I came. You too, O man, run, but run into the bosom of God, from which you came. Oh, please, I beg you, do not run along the wrong paths, the paths which lead to the precipice. Otherwise, woe to you. Even the wildest animals repeat to us, See, O man, how wild you must be for all that is not God. See, when we see that someone is approaching us, with all our roars we strike so much fear that no one dares to come close to us any more, to disturb our solitude. You too, when the stench of earthly things, that is, your violent passions, are about to make you muddy and fall into the abyss of sins, with the roars of your prayers and by withdrawing from the occasions in which you find yourself, you will be safe from any danger. And so with all the other beings. It would take too long to tell them all. With one voice they resound among themselves and repeat to us, See, O man, our Creator made us for love of you, and we are all at your service. And you, don't be so ungrateful. Love, we beg you. Love, we repeat to you. Love our Creator. After this, my lovable Jesus told me, This is all I want. Love God and your neighbor for love of me. See how much I have loved man, and he is so ungrateful. How could you not want me to chastise them? At that very moment, I seemed to see a terrible hail, and an earthquake which is to cause considerable damage, to the point of destroying plants and men. Then with all the bitterness of my soul I said to him, My always lovable Jesus, why so indignant? If man is ungrateful, it is not so much because of malice, but because of weakness. Oh, if they knew you a little bit! Oh, how humble and palpitating they would be! Therefore placate yourself. I commend to you at least Corato and those who belong to me. As I was saying this, it seemed to me that something was to happen also in Corato, but it would be nothing compared to what would happen in other towns. March 13th, 1906, Volume 7. If the soul cannot be without Jesus, it is a sign that she is necessary to his love. This morning Blessed Jesus was not coming, and I was saying to myself, Lord, don't you see that I feel life missing in me? I feel such necessity of you that if you do not come, I feel my being destroyed. Do not deny me what is absolutely necessary to me. I do not ask you for kisses, caresses, favors, but only for what is necessary. While I was saying this, I found myself all absorbed in him. My whole being was dissolved in such a way that I could do nothing and see nothing but what he himself was doing and seeing. I felt blissful, happy, all of my powers dozy, just like one who goes into the depths of the sea, which is all water. And if he looks, he sees water. If he speaks, the water prevents his speech and enters even into his bowels. If he listens, it is the murmuring of the waters that enters into his ears. With this difference, that in the sea one's life is in danger and one feels neither happy nor blissful, while in God one reacquires divine life, happiness, and beatitude. Then Blessed Jesus told me, My daughter, if you cannot be without me, so much am I necessary for you. It is a sign that you are necessary to my love. In fact, the degree in which one becomes necessary to someone else is a sign that the second is necessary to the first. Therefore, even though sometimes it seems that I am not coming, and you struggle, and I see how necessary I am for you, as this necessity grows in you, so does it grow in me, and I say to myself, I am going to go and take this relief for my love. This is why after you have struggled, I come. March 13th, 1907, Volume 7. Luisa prays to Jesus for her mother, that she may not go to purgatory after her death. It continues almost always in the same way. At the most he makes himself seen in silence. In these last days when he made himself seen, he would caress me and kiss me, and since my mamma was sick, he made me understand that he would take her. I would say to him, My Lord, you want her, and I give her to you as a gift before you take her. I do not want to wait until you take her, without giving her to you before. But I want from you the recompense for the gift I give you, giving me as reward your taking her straight to paradise, without letting her touch purgatory, at the cost of making me suffer the purgatory that Mamma should have. And Blessed Jesus would say to me, My daughter, let me do. Returning to pray him again, I would say, But my sweet love, who will have the heart to see my mamma suffer in purgatory? She who suffered so much and who cried so much because of me. It is the weight of gratitude that pushes me, that urges me, and gives me strength. As for all other things, do whatever you want, but in this, no, I do not give up. You will content me and will do what I want. And he, My beloved, do not render yourself too importunate. You are truly untiring, and by being untiring, you force me to content you. However, he would not give me a definitive answer. I would return to storm him, and would cry like a child, and praying him again, I kept offering what he suffered in his passion, minute by minute, hour by hour, applying it to the soul of my mother, that she might be purged and embellished, and I might obtain my intent. And he would add, drying my tears, But my dear beloved one, do not cry. You know that I love you. Can I not content you? See, with the continuous offering of my passion as you let nothing escape you of what I suffered for your mother. Her soul is inside an immense sea, and this sea washes her, embellishes her, enriches her, inundates her with light. And to assure you that I will content you, when your mother dies, you will be surprised by a fire and will feel burned. I remained content, but not certain, because he had not yet told me whether he would take her straight to paradise. March 13th, 1908, Volume 8. The warmth of the union with Jesus dispels from the soul the cold of human inclinations. While I was in my usual state, a demon came who did strange things. But as soon as he disappeared, I no longer thought about it, to the point of forgetting about his strange behavior, occupying myself with my highest and only good. Later, however, a thought came to me. How bad and insipid I am! Nothing makes an impression on me. And blessed Jesus told me, "My daughter, there are certain regions in which the plants are not subject to cold, to frost, to snow, and therefore they are not stripped of their leaves, flowers, and fruits. And if they take some breaks, it is for a short time, so that when their fruits are picked, there may be the necessary time for others to grow. In fact, warmth fecundates them in an admirable way, and they are not subject to slowness, as the plants in cold regions. These poor plants, because of frost and snow, for long months are subject to producing very few fruits, and for a very short time, almost tiring the patience of the farmer who has to pick them. Such are the souls who have reached union with me. The warmth of my union dispels from them the cold of human inclinations which, like cold, renders them sterile and stripped of leaves and of divine fruits. The frosts of passions, the snows of disturbances, block the fruits of grace in the soul. But since they remain in the shadow of their union with me, nothing makes an impression on them any more. Nothing enters into their interior which may disturb our union and our rest. The whole of their lives turns within my center, so their inclination, their passion, is for God. And if sometimes there is a little break, it is nothing but a simple hiding of myself in order to give them a surprise of greater consolations, and therefore be able to enjoy in them more delicious fruits of patience and of heroism, which they have exercised during my hiding. All the opposite happens to imperfect souls. They really seem like plants born in cold regions. They are subject to all impressions, so their lives live more from impressions than from reason and virtue. Inclinations, passions, temptations, disturbances, and all the events of life are like colds, snows, frosts, hails, which prevent the development of my union with them. And when it seems that they have had a beautiful flowering, a new failure, something that upsets them, is enough to make this beautiful flowering wither and fall to the ground. So they are always at the beginning. They produce very few fruits, and they almost tire my patience in cultivating them. March 13th, 1912, Volume 11. The victim baptism by fire has effects superior to the baptism by water. Jesus continues to speak about the state of victim, telling me, "My daughter, the baptism at birth is by water. It has the virtue to purify, but not to take away tendencies and passions. On the other hand, the baptism of victim is baptism by fire. Therefore it has not only the virtue to purify, but also to consume any passion and evil tendencies. I myself baptize the soul bit by bit. My thought baptizes the thought of the victim's soul. My heartbeat baptizes her heartbeat. My desire her desire, and so on. This baptism is done between myself and the soul, according to whether she gives herself to me without ever taking back what she gave me. This is why, my daughter, you don't feel evil tendencies and such. It comes from your state of victim, and I tell you this for your consolation. So tell Father G to be well attentive, for this is the mission of missions, the apostolate of apostolates. I want him always with me, and all intent within me. March 13th, 1922, Volume 14, The Great Good That Hearing the Truths Brings. As I was in my usual state, I found myself in the midst of a flowery valley, in which I found my late confessor, who died on the 10th of the current month. This is her third confessor, Don Gennaro di Gennaro. According to his habit when he lived down here, he told me, "Tell me, what did Jesus say to you?" And he spoke to me in my interior. He did not tell me anything with words. And you know that I don't take into account the things which I hear in my interior. And I want to hear also what he told you in your interior. And I, as though forced, he told me, "My daughter, I carry you in my arms. My arms will serve you as a little boat to make you sail in the interminable sea of my will. Then, as you do your acts in my volition, you will form the sails, the mast, the anchor, which will serve not only as ornament to the little boat, but to make it move faster. The love I have for one who lives in my will is so great that I carry her in my arms without ever leaving her." And while he was saying this, I saw the arms of Jesus in the shape of a little boat, and myself in the middle of it. On hearing this, the confessor told me, "You must know that when Jesus speaks to you and manifests his truths to you, rays of light drop upon you. Back then, when you manifested them to me, not having his virtue, you manifested them drop by drop, and yet my soul remained all filled with those drops of light. That light gave me greater spur, more desire to hear more truths, to be able to receive more light, because the truths bring celestial fragrance and divine sensation, and this by just hearing them. What will it be for those who practice them? This is why I desired so much to hear what Jesus told you, and I wanted to tell others. It was light and fragrance that I felt, and I wanted others to share in them. If you knew the great good that my soul has received in hearing the truths which Jesus was saying to you, how it still drips with light and emanates celestial fragrance, which not only gives me refreshment, but serves as light to me and to those who are near me. And as you do your acts in the divine volition, I take special part in them, because I feel the seed of his most holy will which you were sowing in me. And let me see your soul. How does it drip with light?" He opened himself on the side of the heart, and I saw his soul all dripping with light. Those drops were merging and separating, one flowing over the other. It was beautiful to look at. And have you seen? How beautiful it is to hear the truths. Those who do not hear them drip with such darkness as to be terrifying. March 13th, 1924, Volume 16. True love can hide nothing to the beloved of what it has in its heart. The immense light of the divine will contains and carries everything, pains and joys, in order to perform its crafting. So it did in Jesus, and so it does in the soul. I felt like dying because of the privation of my sweet Jesus. Then, after much hardship, he moved in my interior, and he shared his pains with me, but so much that I felt like suffocating. I felt the rattle of agony, and yet I myself am unable to tell who was the cause of my pains. I only felt an immense light, and this light turned into pain for me. Then, after having somehow suffered, my adorable Jesus told me, "My daughter, this is why I did not want to come, because the pains I suffered were many, and in coming to you, my faithful one who is inseparable from me, my love would have led me to share them with you, and in seeing you suffer I would have suffered, in seeing you suffer because of me." And ah, my Jesus, how you have changed! It shows that you no longer want to suffer together with me. You want to do it all by yourself. After all, if I am no longer worthy to suffer together with you, do not hide, but come without making me suffer. It is true that not taking part in your pains would be a nail too piercing for me, but it would be less painful than your privation. And Jesus, "My daughter, you do not know the nature of true love, and this is why you speak in this way. True love can hide nothing to the beloved, either joys or pains. For one sorrowful thought, for one fiber of the heart, which it hides and does not pour into the beloved, it feels as though separated from her, discontent, restless, and until it pours all its heart into the loved one, it cannot find rest. So coming without pouring in you all my heart, my pains, my joys, and the ingratitude of men, would be too hard for me. I would rather content myself with remaining as though hidden in the depth of your soul, instead of coming without sharing with you my pains and my most intimate secrets. Therefore I will be content with suffering and seeing you suffer, rather than not pour all of my heart in you. And my Jesus, forgive me. I said this because you said that you suffered in seeing me suffer. But let nothing ever be which may divide us in love, rather any pain, but separate, never." And Jesus added, "Do not fear, my daughter. Wherever my will is, there cannot be separation in love. In fact, I did nothing to you. It was the light of my will to make you suffer. Penetrating into you as most pure light, it brought my pains down to the most intimate fibers of your heart. My will is more piercing than any sword, more than nails, thorns, and scourges. Being most pure light, in its immensity it sees and encloses everything. Therefore it contains the power of all pains, and as it makes its light penetrate the soul, it brings the pains it wants. So since your will and mine are one, the current of its light brought you my pains. So did my divinity operate in my humanity. Its most pure light brought me pains at every breath, at every heartbeat, at every movement, into my whole person. Nothing was hidden to it, either that which was needed in order to restore the glory of the Father on the part of creatures, or their offenses, or that which was needed in order to save them. Therefore it spared me nothing. Its most pure light crucified my most intimate fibers, my heartbeats of fire, and so it made of me the perpetual crucified. And not only in my hands and feet, rather its light, scanning me completely, crucified the most tiny particles of my person. Ah, if creatures knew what my divine will made my humanity suffer for love of them, they would be drawn to love me as by a powerful magnet. But for now they cannot, because their taste is rough and profaned by the human will, and they would not enjoy the sweet fruits of the pains of my divine will. More so, since by living at the bottom, in the human will, they would not understand the height, the power, the attitude, the goods which the divine will contains. But the time will come when the supreme will, making its way in the midst of creatures and making itself understood more, will manifest the pains which my eternal will made my humanity suffer. Therefore, when the light of my will flows in you, let yourself be scanned by it, that it may accomplish its perfect and full work in you. And if you do not see me often, do not afflict yourself. These are the new events which are preparing unexpected things for the poor world. But the light of my will never be lacking to you. After this, my adorable Jesus disappeared, and I felt as though submerged in his will. I felt my poor littleness in contact with the divine greatness, height, and immensity. My misery touched by divine riches, my ugliness touching the eternal beauty. In his will I lived of the reflections of God, and while receiving everything from him, I found everything, and I carried all creation on my lap at the feet of the eternal majesty. It seemed to me that in his will I did nothing but ascend to heaven and descend upon earth, to ascend again in order to bring all generations, to love him for all, and to make him loved by all. Then, while I was doing this, my Jesus made himself seen again and told me, "My daughter, how beautiful and delightful it is to see the creature live in our will. She lives from our reflections, and while living from our reflections, she absorbs the likeness of her Creator within herself. So she is embellished, enriched, enlarged, so much as to be able to take everyone and to bring all to us. And she draws so much love from us as to be able to love us for all. And we find in her all our love, which we delivered in creation, our satisfaction, our contentment, and the return of our works. Our love for the soul who lives in our will is so great that, by virtue of our will, the soul becomes that which we are by nature. We pour everything into her. Not even a fiber do we leave out which is not filled of our own. We fill her so much as to make her overflow, forming divine rivers and seas around her. And we descend into these seas to amuse ourselves, admiring our works with love and feeling fully glorified. Therefore, my daughter, live in the most pure light of my will. If you want your Jesus to repeat again that word which he said in creating man, by virtue of our will, let us make this soul in our image and likeness. March 13th, 1927, Volume 21, How the Divine Will Does Not Leave Anyone. How it possesses the regenerative virtue, and holds everything in the palm of its hand. My poor existence lives under the hard press of the privation of my sweet Jesus. Hours seem centuries to me without him, and I feel all the weight of my hard exile. Oh God, what pain to live without he who forms my life, my heartbeat, my breath. Jesus, what harsh tearing is your privation for me. Everything is hindrance. Everything is hardship. How can the goodness of your tender heart bear seeing me so hampered only because of you? How can you leave me for so long? My sighs do not wound you any more? My moans, my yearnings, searching for you, for nothing else but because they want life, do they not move you to compassion? It is life that I want, nothing else, and you deny this life to me? Jesus, Jesus, who would ever have thought that you would leave me for so long? Ah, come back, for I can take no more. Then while I was pouring out my pain, my dear Jesus, my sweet life, moved in my interior and told me, "My daughter, if to you it seems that I have left you, and you were not feeling my life in you, my will has not left you. On the contrary, Its life in you was in its fullness. Indeed, it does not leave anyone, not even the damned in hell. Rather, it is there fulfilling its inexorable and irreconcilable justice. In fact, in hell there is no reconciliation. Even more, it forms their torment. It is right that one who did not want to receive it, in order to be loved, made happy, and glorified, receive it to be tormented and humiliated. Therefore my will does not leave anyone, either in heaven or on earth or in hell. It holds everything within itself, as though in the palm of its hand. No one can escape it, neither man, nor fire, nor water, nor wind, nor sun. Everywhere it holds its empire and extends its life, ruling and dominating everything. If it leaves nothing and invests everything, could it ever leave its little firstborn daughter in whom it has centralized its love, its life, and its kingdom? In fact, even though my divine will extends everywhere and holds its empire over everything, yet if the creature loves it, it makes itself all love, and it gives its love. If she wants it as life, it forms its divine life in her. If she wants to let it reign, it forms its kingdom. It carries out its acts according to the dispositions of creatures. It possesses the regenerative virtue. It regenerates divine life, sanctity, peace, reconciliation, happiness. It regenerates light, beauty, grace. It knows how to do everything. It gives itself to all. It extends everywhere. Its acts are innumerable. They multiply to infinity. To each creature it gives a new act according to their dispositions. Its variety is unreachable. Who can ever escape my will? No one. One would have to go out of creation, or be a being not created by us, which can never be, because the right of creating is only of God. Therefore my will never leave you, either in life or in death, or after death. More so since, by regenerating you as a special birth from itself, both of you want that it form its kingdom, and wherever it is present, I am there, in my full triumph. Can there ever be a will without the person who possesses this will? Certainly not. And do not be surprised if you often feel as if my life were ending in you. You feel it ending, but it is not true. It happens as to created things that seem to die, but then they always rise again. The sun seems to die, but it is because the earth, in rotating, loses the sun, and so it seems it dies. But the sun lives and remains always in its place. And this is so true that, as the earth keeps rotating, it finds its sun again, as though rising again to new life for it. On earth, everything seems to die. The plants, the beautiful flowerings, the delicious fruits. But afterwards everything rises again and acquires life. The human nature itself, during sleep, it seems to die. But from the sleep it rises again more vigorous and restored. Among all created things, only the heavens are always fixed and never die, symbol of the stable goods of the celestial fatherland that are not subject to changes. But all other things, the water, the fire, the wind, everything, they seem to die, but then they rise again, all animated by my will, that is not subject to death, and that possesses the act of making all things rise again, as many times as it wants. Even more, while they seem to die, they have perennial life, by virtue of the regenerative power of my will. The same happens in you. To you it seems that my life dies, but it is not true, because since my will is in you, there is the regenerative virtue that makes me rise again, as many times as it wants. Wherever my fiat is present, there can be neither death nor goods that end, but perennial life, not subject to ending. March 13th, 1929, Volume 25. How the Divine Love Overflowed in Creation. How the Divine Will does not know how to do broken things. How each privation of Jesus is a new pain. I feel a strength within me, a divine power, that draws me continuously into the eternal volition, as if it wanted me in continuous company with its acts, to give to its little newborn the life of these acts, and to have the pleasure of hearing them being repeated, or of repeating them together with her. It seems that the divine fiat enjoys very much. It celebrates when it sees the little newborn in its arms of light, either to tell her something about its long story, or to let her repeat what it does together with it. The divine fiat feels all the joy, the happiness for having issued the creation. So its light transported my little intelligence into Eden, in the act when our Creator, in a surge of love, created the life of love in Adam, in order to love him always, without ever ceasing, as indeed it never ceased, to be loved by him in return with an incessant love. It wanted to love him with a love that never says enough, but it wanted to be loved in return. While my mind was wandering in the love of the Creator and of the creature, my sweet Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, "My daughter, in the first act of the creation of man, our love overflowed so strongly and raised its flames so high as to make its arcane voices heard, so strong and penetrating, that the heavens, the stars, the sun, the wind, the sea, and everything felt invested by mysterious voices crying out over the head of man, 'I love you, I love you, I love you.' These arcane and powerful voices called man, and he, as though stirred from a sweet sleep, and feeling enraptured by each 'I love you' of he who had created him, also cried out in his surge of love, in the sun, in the heavens, in the sea, and in everything, 'I love you, I love you, I love you, O my Creator.' Our divine will that dominated Adam did not let him lose anything, not even one 'I love you' of ours to which he would not respond with his own. It was lovely, a sweet enchantment to hear him, as the power of our divine fiat would take the 'I love you' of our Son, the dear jewel of our heart, upon the wings of its light, and invading the whole creation, he would make us hear, in each created thing, his continuous 'I love you,' just like our own. Our divine will does not know how to do broken and interrupted things, but continuous. As long as Adam possessed his dear inheritance of our fiat, he possessed its continuous act. It can be said that he competed with us, for when we do an act, it no longer ceases. Therefore everything was harmony between him and us, harmony of love, of beauty, of sanctity. Our fiat let him lack nothing of all our things. As he withdrew from our will, he lost the way in order to reach our things, and formed many voids between himself and us, voids of love, voids of beauty and of sanctity, and formed an abyss of distance between God and himself. And this is why our fiat wants to return into the creature as fount of life, to fill these voids and make him return, as a little newborn, into its arms, and to give him its continuous act, just as it created him. After this I felt myself without my highest good, Jesus, and I experienced such pain that I am unable to explain it. Then, after much waiting, my dear life came back, and I said to him, "Tell me, my beloved Jesus, why is the pain of your privation always new? As you hide, I feel a new pain arise within my soul, a death more cruel, more harrowing, more than those experienced other times, when you eclipse yourself from me. And my always lovable Jesus told me, "My daughter, you must know that every time I come to you, I communicate to you a new act of my divinity. I communicate to you now a new knowledge about my divine will, now a new beauty of mine, now a new sanctity of mine, and so with all our divine qualities. This new act that I communicate to you causes that, when you remain without me, this greater knowledge brings a new pain into the soul, because the more one knows a good, the more one loves it, and the new love brings the new pain when you remain without it. This is why, when you remain without me, you feel that a new pain invades your soul. But this new pain prepares you to receive, and the void is prepared in you, in which to place the new knowledges about the divine will. The pain, the new harrowing death that you suffer because of my privation, is the new call that, with arcane and mysterious and enrapturing voice, calls me, and I come, and in return I manifest to you a new truth that brings you the new life of your Jesus. More so since the knowledges on my divine fiat are divine lives that come out of the womb of our divinity, and therefore the divine pain that you suffer because of my privation has the virtue of calling from heaven these divine lives of the knowledges of my will to reveal themselves to you, so as to make them reign on the face of the earth. Oh, if you knew what value one single knowledge on my divine will contains, what good it can produce, you would hold it as the most precious relic, and one kept as more than sacrament. Therefore let me do, and abandon yourself in my arms, waiting for your Jesus to bring you the divine lives of the knowledges of his fiat. March 13th, 1932, Volume 30. She, the prisoner, and he, the divine prisoner. The Virgin, announcer, messenger, leader of the kingdom of the divine will. One who lives in the divine will forms the speaking creation. My abandonment in the fiat continues, but I feel vividly my extreme poverty, my non-entity, the continuous pain of the privation of my sweet Jesus. If it weren't for his divine volition that sustains me, and very often fraternizes me with heaven, in such a way as to infuse new life in me, I would not be able to go on without he who so very often takes off, hides himself, while I remain on the stake of love waiting for him. And as I am slowly consumed, when I reach the extremes, only then does he repeat his short little visit. So I was thinking to myself, Jesus has shackled me and bound me with chains, such that there is no danger that they might break. I am indeed the poor prisoner. Oh, how I would like my celestial mamma in my company, so that under her guidance I may live the way one should live in the divine will. But while I was thinking of this, my sweet Jesus repeated his short little visit, and all tenderness told me, "My dear prisoner, how happy I am that I shackled you and bound you, because my shackles and my chains say that my love alone, to keep you at my disposal, has used shackles and chains to make you a prisoner only for me. But, you know, love wants tit for tat. If I made you a prisoner, first I made myself prisoner for you in your own heart. And not wanting to be alone, I made you prisoner, so as to be able to say, 'We are two prisoners, such that one cannot be without the other.' In this way we will be able to prepare the kingdom of my divine will. The works done on one's own are not enjoyable, but company renders them pleasant. It pushes one to work. It sweetens the sacrifice and forms the most beautiful works. And in seeing you call our celestial Mamma as your guide, your prisoner Jesus exulted with joy in having her sweet company in our work. You must know that she was the true and celestial prisoner of my divine will. Therefore she knows all the secrets, the ways. She possesses the keys of its kingdom. Even more, for each act that the queen prisoner did, she prepared in her act the place to receive the acts of the creature done in the divine will. And oh, how the celestial sovereign stands in waiting, hand at attention, to see whether the creature operates in my fiat, so as to take these acts with her maternal hands and enclose them in her acts, as pledges, as antidotes, that the kingdom of the divine will is wanted upon earth. So this kingdom was already formed by me and by the celestial lady. It already exists. It only has to be given to creatures. In order for it to be given, it is necessary to know it. Hence, since she is the holiest, the greatest creature, who knew no other kingdom but the kingdom of my divine will alone, she occupies the first place in it. By right, the celestial queen will be the announcer, the messenger, the leader of a kingdom so holy. Therefore pray her, invoke her, and she will act for you as guide, as teacher, and with love all maternal will receive all your acts and will enclose them in her own, and will say to you, the acts of my daughter are like the acts of her mamma. Therefore they can stay with mine, in order to double the right for creatures to receive the kingdom of the divine will. Since this, his kingdom, God must give and the creature must receive, it takes the acts of both sides in order to obtain the intent. So she who holds more ascendancy, more power, more empire over the divine heart is the sovereign of heaven. Her acts will be at the head, with the retinue of the acts of other creatures, changed into divine by virtue of my will, to give them the right to receive this kingdom. And God, in seeing these acts, will feel moved to give it for the sake of that love that he had in creation, as he created everything, so that his will be done on earth as it is in heaven, and each creature be a kingdom of his will, that would have its total dominion. Therefore, always forward in operating and living in the supreme fiat. After this, my mind was wandering in the divine volition, and my sweet Jesus added, my daughter, the soul who enters into my will converts into light, and all her acts, without losing anything of their diversity, of their nature, and of what they are in themselves, are vivified and animated by light. So all the acts, though distinct among themselves, have the light of my fiat as life, and my fiat delights in forming, with its life of light, now the thought, the word, the work, the step, and so forth. And the soul, as the original heaven animated by the fiat, forms with her acts the sun, the stars, the sea that always murmurs, the wind that moans, that speaks, that shouts, that whistles, that caresses and forms its refreshments. She gives divine light to her Creator, to herself, and it descends even into the depths of creatures. And since the light is fecund and has the virtue of diffusing everywhere by itself, she forms the most beautiful flowerings, but all invested with light. And here is how my divine will repeats its beloved creation in the soul who lives in its light, or rather an even more beautiful one, because the creation is mute, and if it eloquently speaks, It does so always in its mute language, while the creation it forms in the soul is all speaking. The sun speaks of her works, the sea of her thoughts, the wind of her words, the treading of her steps, that as she walks, leaves the virtues of its flowers, and everything she does speak like brilliant stars, that with their twinkling pray, love, praise, bless, repair, and thank continuously, without ever ceasing, that supreme Fiat that, with so much love, delights in forming in them the beautiful speaking creation, all animated by its divine light. Therefore it is no wonder that your Jesus forms his continual dwelling in the midst of this speaking creation, that my divine will forms for me. It would be more surprising if I were not there, because the owner, the King who has formed it for himself with so much love, would be missing. Why form it if I were not to dwell inside of it and enjoy my lovely speaking creation? More so, since in this speaking creation there is always work to do, always something to add. Each of her acts is one more voice that she acquires, and that with all eloquence speaks to me of my love and of hers, and I must listen to it. Not only this, but I want to enjoy her tastes that she gives to me. I like them so much that I long for them, and therefore I cannot put them aside. Then there is always something to give, and always something to take. Therefore I cannot leave her without me even for one instant. At the most, now I speak, and now I remain silent. Now I let myself be felt, and now I remain hidden. But to leave one who lives in my divine will, I cannot. Therefore be sure that as long as you do not go out of it, your Jesus does not leave you. He will always be with you, and you will always be with me. End of March 13th. Fiat.